All right, so this is going to be the first video in a new little series I'm going to do. We kind of talked about it some, and we got a lot of good feedback. So I'm going to call it Mechanical Musings. And if you don't know what musing is, you can just Google it, then it'll make more sense. But, a lot of times I'm just eating lunch or it's late in the afternoon and I'm scrolling through YouTube and videos pop up, and sometimes I just, look at them and see if it's anything interesting, and I see stuff that uh, sometimes I think maybe I could shed some light on the topic, or uh, give them an attaboy, or maybe, you know, tweet some or give my opinion or whatever. So everybody seemed like they was interested in that. So this will be the first series. I just, matter of fact, I was eating supper and a video just come in the feed, and I I kind of fast forwarded, but I hit the high spots, and I seen what the topic was, and of course it's a LS lifter issue video, and I think I've done some decent research on that, so I think I got some information that may be pertinent to the subject matter. So hang loose, and I'm gonna get everything set up here, and then I'm just gonna play some sections of the video, and I'll link the original video in the description so you can watch the whole video in its context. So that way, everybody's on the same page. But here we go. Hang loose. All right. So just since you ain't watched this whole video, some backstory. This channel had some perceived quality issues with some lifters he received, and so he's going to talk about the perceived quality issues, and then that there's some different brands, and he's going to talk about them. So we're going to watch this little section, and then I'll stop it here and comment as we go on what's actually going on. And I've got some examples here in the shop that I'll show you.
All right, so we have the Michigan Motorsports lifters here, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. So we have all the lifters pulled out here out of the box, and they're all standing up. And what I'm going to focus on today is the rollers themselves. There's the pin that goes through, and as you can see, they are all installed canted or sloppy. And if you were to spin these lifters around, you can't even say that the angle they are on is uniform, because one might have more material holding it in on the other side, and one might have less on the other side if you flip it. And in my opinion, that's what leads to these roller needles having the opportunity to fall out, which is lore at this point amongst LS builders or LS performance guys. These pins will fall out at a certain point in wear and end up in your oil pan.
So let's see, let me get it turned right. So what you're seeing right there is actually that circle that's not concentric. The way the axle is retained in most of these lifters is they put it in a machine and they stake it with a press. So it just around that circumference, it swells it out, and that holds the pin in. So I haven't seen the pin come out. I'm sure the pin comes out and death ensues and all of that. I have not had it happen. I guess so. And the bad thing, here's the bad thing. So that one right there, this crooked, focus, is a Delphi. People keep saying Delphi. I've made other videos on this. Delphi hasn't made a lifter for GM since 2008. The LS7 lifter existed before the LS7. This is a second design lifter manufactured by GMHC, General Motors Holding Corporation. Um, I had a long talk with Delphi. I have it in an email. Delphi said they have not made a lifter for GM, but they've not been over that department since 2008. So people keep saying it. I don't know. This right here is our house brand. You see how centered that is? That's our house brand LS7 lifter. And this is a Cadillac lifter, the GM Performance Parts version. Those are staked very nice. I've actually got the whole box, and I haven't looked at them yet. But while we're standing here, I'm going to look and see if any are crooked. But with these being not production line, or maybe they are production line, but obviously they're. So they all look pretty good. But we got a video coming out on these caddy lifters. Yeah, here we go, right here. So here is your right there. You see the bow tie. Here's your $500, $600 set, and you see it's staked crooked. It is not straight. So this $600 set of lifters, and we're gonna do a video. I'm gonna take it apart and I'm gonna show you. This $600 lifter ain't no different than this $149 lifter. So all these folks spending $500 on this Cadillac lifter, this super duper, is nonsense, just like everything else. You'll find as you go, most of this stuff on the internet, it just all stacks up to be a big old pile of nonsense. And it's crazy. The stuff is just crazy. But anyway, so the moral of the story thus far is the guy thinks that the axle is actually crooked in the wheel, right? It's not parallel, perpendicular. But all you're seeing at the end is just where they stake the axle to keep it from coming out. And 99.89% of the time, it's either a bearing failure in the wheel and the bearings just disintegrate and then the wheel's loose and then the bearings can come out of the wheel. But he talked about the bearings coming out, falling in the motor. There's really no way for the bearings to come out of the motor, the bearings to come out of the wheel, other than some of them disintegrate or chew the axle up. But rarely is the axle coming out. I just don't see the axle come out. I mean, I know it can happen and it has happened, but it's not like a normal thing that I've seen anyway. So, that's that, right? And he showed the lifter and it's got the laser engraved number. That is the new GM lifters. That is them. I bought them straight from GM Performance Parts. We are direct with GM Performance Parts, and you can buy that lifter, and it's engraved like that. They're absolutely garbage. It's nothing to do with the wheel or the axle or the bearings. None of that's the problem. The hydraulic unit and the piston is the problem. We done some round track motors, brand hammer new out of the pack. Put them in the motor, adjusted everybody. It's all happy. Some little bit of break-in time on the motor. Went to the track and literally in one lap, the plunger hung at the bottom. It stuck at the bottom of the bore, like the bore was tapered or out around, or it had some issue, right? And the plunger stuck, and then the push rod beat the cup all to pieces, and it finally come out. And we put another set of lift. It didn't hurt anything. We put aftermarket set in it. No more issues. So, and I've seen that happen 5 or 6 times. So it's not an isolated incident. And we never had that problem before. But now that lifter is different. It looks different. Um, I mean, they still say it's made in the USA, but something is different because it's not the same lifter. The body machining is a lot rougher, and the color, like because they're heat treated, and they used to have a dark hue like to the heat treat, and now they're just different. I don't know what has changed in the process, but it is not the same cookie for sure. So let's continue on and see what else he's got to say.
The roller pin is set inside of this lifter. You will find that same uniformity through all of these lifters. And for a price that's just marginally more than what you would be paying for those Michigan Motorsports. Now, you don't get your lifter trays with this set here, of course, but
all right, so what he's seeing here, and he's talking about the uniformity. So the way Morrell does it, and some other places do it too, but what they've done is they machine a groove in the lifter body, and then they insert a snap ring. So instead of the wheel being staked in the lifter body, the wheel is, not the wheel, the axle, I'm sorry. The axle is retained by a circlip. So, and either way is fine for sure, but the circlip is definitely, more work, right? I mean, we talking production, billions of lifters versus smaller production, and that's the difference. But neither here nor there, that has absolutely nothing to do with the axle being parallel or perpendicular to the lifter body. So that in itself is a moot point, but he just doesn't, I don't think he grasps that what's happening here. I don't think, but anyway.
So here we have the Morrell lifter, but let's focus on this, which is the Michigan Motorsports. You can see the uneven pinning of the roller. Now I'm going to compare this to these LS3 lifters. These two lifters failed on a customer's car. He was coming in to get a cam job done anyway and some other work, so it didn't really matter. But these two lifters failed, and it was kicking its ass off when it came in. And I want to show you something in comparison on these two failed lifters. First, let me show you the cam lobes that they ate.
So here's where we done a video, I don't know, a week ago about data. This is a perfect example of two people looking at the same data and coming to vastly different conclusions. He is assuming the lifter failed and hurt the cam lobe. What actually happened is the cam lobe started flaking and embedded in the lifter. And so he thinks the lifter's bad. Well, it's actually the cam's bad. And if you look, you've seen it. If you look at the lifter, the wheel and the axle and all of that is still completely intact. The only thing that's wrong with it is it's got some dents in it where all the trash off of the lobe has, dug into the lifter as the wheel's trying to roll over, the cam lobe flaking. And that is mostly, I think, from cheap, or maybe not cheap, low-grade steel and induction hardening, and possibly it was just the temper might have not been right, and the surface hardness was just too hard, and it started flaking. It didn't have any toughness. Like when we heat treat stuff, we bring it to full hard, and then we draw it back or temper it, and then when you temper it, it adds strength and durability. That people worry to death about that maximum hardness number, and that's not nearly as important as For instance, we do a lot of, or used to do a lot of A2 tool steel in house, and we heat treated in house, and we can make A2 tool steel pretty close to 60 Rockwell, but it's not nearly as strong or tough at 60 as it is at 55. So we generally always draw or temper it back to like 55, 54, and it's just super tough. It's got a really good wear resistance, and uh, it's not, it's fracture resistant. It just, when stuff is really, really hard, it fractures. And that's where, temper. And again, I don't know that that's what's going on here, but I see this a lot, and I feel pretty confident that it's just that one didn't, it wasn't happy, because most of this stuff is induction hardened, and time, temperature, and quench temperature, all of that stuff is really important. And as fast as they run these things through the batch, some of it's not off. And I see this even with aftermarket performance cores. I still see this, not nearly as much, but I do still see it. So, but again, he thinks the axle is crooked, and that's what caused that to happen. But that stake being off center has absolutely no bearing on the surface given up on this camshaft.
These two out of the 16 were the only two, and they were right next to each other. And out of the 16 that I removed from the LS3, these two lifters have the most canted roller pin installation from factory now. And I'll show you a couple from over here that I have. Now, again, we're going to compare to this one is the Michigan Motorsports. Here's what I'm trying to show you guys, though. The pinning isn't fully off, but it's not exactly centered. And I'll show you here. This one's a better example. And again, out of the 16, these are the only one that have off-centered pins, and subsequently they are the ones that failed. And
so I think we'll stop right there. But I feel like that you get the point. Again, it's just not a pin. He kept saying canted, like, canted is an angle, and so the pin is not in on the angle. It is straight. And again, if the pin was on the angle, the wheel would be on the angle, and you would see it wearing on one side of the lobe, not a nice flat line across the lobe. So, again, this is just visual data interpretation, right? You can set the lifter in a V block on the surface plate and take an indicator and go across the wheel and know whether or not the wheel is parallel. We can test these things. We don't have to guess. But I thought that would just be a quick, easy first episode that, again, I hear all of these crazy stories about LS lifters, and I still think that all of this stuff comes back around to oil and the quality of oil, how well you maintain your vehicle, how much it idles. All of that stuff has a bearing on this, because like the wheel in these lifters, the bearings in the wheel, the only place they get oil is from the crankshaft slinging on it. Just like a flat tappet, the only place the face gets oil is from the rotating assembly slinging oil up there. So if you do a bunch of idling around, oil's not moving like it is going down the road. So I bet most of this stuff, if you, really investigate, you'll find out that, and not all of it, I'm sure. Stuff just happens. And again, here we go again. this is a tolerance that we can't test. I mean, we can take it apart and test it, but we can't take a brand new set of lifters and say, well, how much clearance does my roller bearings in the wheel have? And is it correct? And blah, blah, blah. And because it's staked in, or even the ones with a C-clip, you just almost, I mean, maybe you get it out, but it's an almost nightmare to try to get that out. There's no access to get up under it to pull it out. So it's not like you can just pop it apart and, test some stuff and measure some stuff and say, yep, it's good, and put it back together and know that it's happy. You just are under the, you just got to hope they did it right. And so you just don't know. And people talk about don't soak lifters, and some say do soak lifters. And so the lifters here, I can't speak for anybody else, but here we soak lifters only to make sure the bearings in the wheel, that this area right here. Matter of fact, I got a bucket and it fits 16 lifters, and we put them in the bucket about that deep in oil. I don't care about the hydraulic part, right? Because pressurized oil is going in the hydraulic part. We don't care about that. But nothing is going in here. The only thing going in here is what splashes up there. So I want to make sure that the bearings in the wheel are lubricated on initial start. And there's really it's just covered. You can't, I mean, it ain't like you can really get assembly lube in there, right? So we just stand them all up in a cut off bucket, about half full of oil, and let them set for 4 or 5 hours overnight. Just depends on how much time we got before we got to put them in. And that's the way I do it. And I've had good success. And you may do it a different way, and that's absolutely fine. I mean, nobody has to do it the same way as somebody else. But my concern is that the bearing in the wheel has oil. That's the main thing to me. Everything else I don't care about. New lifters come with they've got I think it's like a 10 weight oil that they use when they test them. And so if you take one apart, it's got a really light, clear oil in it. So it's already got oil inside the body. So the internals are lubricated already. And then hopefully you're going to prime your engine. So there should be oil in all of the galleries, and they should not be any kind of issue with that. So anyway, hopefully that was interesting or fun or both or educational. Let me know in the comments. And if you want to see more content like this, please tell me, because if we get a good response, I'm going to try to do maybe one of these a week in the afternoons when I can, because we are just absolutely crazy slammed with work. I just, it's amazing the amount of work we got is crazy. I got more cam orders. 7 days a week, 2 grinders. We ain't making no headway at all. I mean, some days I just look at the board and say, wow, we need like 4 more grinders going. But I don't know who would run them. It's one of them deals. I seen, while I'm talking about it, while we're here, I just seen the latest video from CJ Race Cars. I followed Cameron and his crew, and I love what they're doing. He just made an announcement that they're not going to take any more customer work. And I mean, I know it, we've talked about it multiple times. And I mean, it's just, I dig it. He can't find no help, no more help. Right. And, I can't either. It's hard to do this stuff. And, he talked about problems trying to hire people, and I've been through it all 20 times over. I really, ultimately, I feel like the only way forward for a lot of us really small shops that just, you like Grandma said a long time ago, either crap or get off the pot. You either got to stay down here in your niche or you got to grow. And if you're going to grow, it's going to take people. You can't, we cannot do any more work. No more work can leave this building without more people, right? And then that just creates a whole nother episode that I can't deal with, right? Quality and people issues, personal stuff. I can't. I just ain't got time for all that because I got stuff to do, and I want my product to be all it can be, and I just can't deal with it. So anyway, um, it's the way forward. I think slowing it down, focusing on a given deal, right? Whatever your deal is, and trying to utilize YouTube because I really think that's the future. That's how we feed our naked, hungry kids and keep our sanity is to focus on what makes money, what you can handle by yourself, what you can do a really good job at, and use that as content for YouTube, and eventually and you guys have got us where we're at, right? I mean, I thought this thing would be a joke, and I mean, I had no idea that in a year we'd have 37,000 subscribers. I mean, it blew me away. I mean, when we was walking around PRI, the amount of people that stopped us and was like, "Hey, man, I mean, it was just like crazy." I'm just blown away by all of that. It's just insane to me that y'all want to see an old fat hillbilly do nonsensical machining and cam grinding and stuff. That's awesome to me. So I love it. Thank you so much. And my naked hungry kids they thank you too. Having said that, again, that's the focus. I mean, we're gonna really narrow down the engine stuff to YouTube worthy content. I think the cam stuff is going to stay like it is. If anything, I think maybe at some point we're probably going to add a CNC grinder because the quantities are getting to a place where I think it's probably going to be justifiable. I mean, it's not yet, but it's coming because, I mean, we got shops and engine builders calling, ordering 4 or 5, 6 cams at a time. I mean, it's really insane. So, but yeah, I think that's what's going to keep people like us going. I think that's the deal. And I think the stress level is going to go down to a manageable place because just running on kill 7 days a week, nobody can maintain that forever. I mean, you can do it for a while, but you can't physically, mentally, you cannot do that forever. It's not healthy physically, mentally, emotionally, for your family. None of that is good. It's not a good thing. So if you are in that place, you need to figure out how to get out of that place because it ain't a place to be. I've been there more times than I want to talk about. All right, this is getting long. I apologize. Thanks so much. Let me know what you think about this, and we'll keep it going. Have a great day.